Subscribe for more.
I never imagined my life would split so cleanly into before and after, but looking back, the warning signs were everywhere, hiding in plain sight, waiting for me to stop making excuses. My name is Oliver Reed. I'm 38, and for 12 years I believed I was married to my best friend, my partner, and the woman who would grow old beside me. Emma was vibrant, social, and endlessly confident, the kind of woman people gravitated toward, while I was steady, predictable, and proud of being someone others could rely on. In the early years, our differences felt complementary, her energy pulling me forward, my stability grounding her, and together we built a life that looked solid from the outside. Somewhere around year 7, small changes crept in, late nights at work, guarded phone screens, laughter that no longer included me, but I told myself this was what adulthood looked like. I focused on providing, paying the mortgage, planning vacations she never seemed excited about, fixing problems quietly, because I believed consistency was love and patience would eventually be rewarded. The affair didn't announce itself dramatically. There was no lipstick on collars or midnight confessions, just a growing distance that turned our home into a place where silence lived comfortably. I discovered the truth on an ordinary afternoon, borrowing her tablet to check a delivery, when a message popped up that used a tenderness she hadn't shown me in years. There was no denial when I confronted her, only tears, apologies, and explanations that somehow framed her betrayal as a consequence of my emotional absence, a narrative I was too tired to fight. We separated quietly, agreeing to take time apart, and outwardly I seemed cooperative, calm, and reasonable, while internally something fundamental had shifted beyond repair. I didn't disappear out of spite. I vanished with intention, relocating cities, changing routines, and rebuilding my life in ways that no longer revolved around proving my worth to someone else. That year alone was brutal and clarifying. Therapy sessions, long walks, empty evenings, and a slow rediscovery of who I was before love became a negotiation. I learned that forgiveness doesn't require access, and healing doesn't mean staying available to someone who chose to fracture your trust when it suited them. Exactly 1 year later, on a rainy October evening, there was a knock at my door that carried a familiarity I hadn't invited back into my life. Emma stood there soaked and shaking, eyes red, voice breaking, telling me she had made the worst mistake of her life and didn't know where else to go. She talked about regret, loneliness, how the affair collapsed into nothing, how the man disappeared when reality replaced secrecy, and how losing me finally taught her what she had. I listened without interrupting, noticing how calm I felt, not triumphant or cruel, just distant, as if her pain belonged to a chapter one had already finished reading. For the first time, I understood that love cannot survive desperation, and reconciliation offered after consequences feels less like devotion and more like fear of being alone. I told her I hoped she found peace, but my life had moved forward, built on honesty and self-respect, and reopening old wounds would only dishonor the growth I earned. She cried harder then, asking if there was any chance, any future, and I realized this moment was the final test of whether I truly valued myself. I said goodbye kindly, closed the door gently, and stood there breathing, knowing that walking away now was not abandonment, but the clearest form of self-preservation. Some people mistake forgiveness for reconciliation, but forgiveness is internal, while reconciliation requires trust that has been consistently protected, not repaired only after it is destroyed. I didn't vanish to punish her. I vanished to save myself, and in doing so, I learned that disappearing can sometimes be the strongest statement of self-worth. Today my life is quieter, smaller, and infinitely more honest, filled with routines I choose, relationships built on mutual effort, and a peace that does not beg. I share this not for sympathy, but for the men silently enduring neglect, hoping patience will resurrect love when sometimes the bravest act is accepting that it already died. If someone betrays you and only returns when life collapses, remember that timing reveals motivation, and love that arrives after loss is rarely about commitment. I don't hate Emma. I simply no longer arrange my future around her regrets, because moving on is not revenge, it is choosing a life that finally feels whole. The door she knocked on no longer led to the man she left behind, and that truth, more than any argument, was the consequence she had to face alone. A year of absence taught me that loyalty without reciprocity is self-erasure, and staying after betrayal only teaches people how much disrespect you are willing to survive. When she knocked, I didn't feel powerful. I felt resolved, because power fades, but resolution endures, carrying you forward without bitterness or longing. There is freedom in being the one who walks away quietly, not to teach a lesson, but to honor the version of yourself that finally learned to choose peace. Love should not require disappearance to be appreciated, and anyone who only recognizes your value after losing access was never truly protecting your heart. I locked the door that night and went to sleep knowing that closure does not always come from explanations, but from the quiet certainty that you honored yourself. She walked away into the rain carrying her remorse, and I stayed inside carrying my future, lighter than it had been in years, finally free from waiting. That is how the story ended, not with reunion, but with self-respect, and sometimes that ending is the beginning we were too afraid to choose earlier. I never looked back again, because the life ahead deserved my full attention without regret or hesitation.